Here we're going to demonstrate the quick mount flat tile mount. This is for flat concrete tile, and here's the spread of the tools needed and the product for 1 unit. So the first thing you want to do on a tile job is do your research. You want to find out what kind of plywood you're working with, if it's 1/2" OSB, oriented strand board, or if it is plywood, and how thick the plywood is, how big the rafters are, how far apart they are, and then make your choice of attachment method. So here in the quick mount flat tile mount, we give 2 different options. Here's one complete set. We have the option with toggle bolts, which is called if you're going to OSB, the oriented strand board, it calls for toggle bolts. If you're going into plywood, we have 4 lag bolts going into these holes here. So you have the option for either toggle bolt connections in the OSB, or if you hit a rafter, you have these 2. And then if you're going into the plywood, you have these 4 lag bolts. Another option also is if you can get into the attic and put in blocks in between rafters, then you can go ahead and use the 4 lag bolts going into a block in between each rafter. Okay, so we've chosen this tile to take out, and same to prop this tile out, you want to prop up your tiles on the course above with a flat bar or anything here. With the flat bar here, you just plop it to the side and it locks in place. And then just one below to the left, you do the same thing, and then that will allow you to pull your tile out of the hooks and off the batten, and your tile is out. So here with these type of roofs, the felt paper is what's waterproofing these roofs. Here it's pretty clean, and then we're ready to do our layout for our mount. So here we're working with OSB, the oriented strand board, and we're going to put in toggle bolts. Okay, so now we have our tile pulled out, and we're just going to do our measurements, which is our instructions call for 6 5/8, and it calls for 5 9/16 from the exposed tile here. So what we're going to do is use the tile as straight edge here and use our plate here. And here on the plate itself, it has lines for the 6 5/8. So we'll measure 6 5/8 from the straight edge here. 6 5/8, and we'll line it up. You can make a line to keep your mark. And then measure 5 9/16 from the center of your plate, and you can make your mark here. And then we mark our holes for where we're going to put our toggle bolts.
I'm rolling.
So here we're going to show both methods of attachment, and first we're going to mark our holes for our 4 lag bolts going into the plywood. We're going to show both methods here. So we're marking our holes, and then we take our 4 lag bolts going to the deck. We're using a 7/16 deep socket to drive with an impact gun to drive these lags down into the deck. And then we can move on to waterproof with our peel and stick flashing. So now we've removed the 4 lag bolts, and we're going to go through the other method of attachment just to show the 2 different kinds. Here we've marked our holes for our 1/4" paddle bit that we're going to drive in here so that we can make clean holes for the toggle bolts. We make sure everything's clean. You can use a vacuum to clean up every little bit, and you might want to make a nice clean hole for your toggle bolts. So here we're putting in the toggle bolts, and you fold the toggle bolt down and you squeeze it through the hole and bring it right back up to the plywood, and then you follow the toggle bolt instructions. But here basically you pull this toggle bolt down, flush to the roof as tight as you can get that down. And then once you're flush, you just break off these pieces, break off the ends, and you're good to go. And you can put in your plate and attach your toggle bolts. And you attach your toggle bolts here, and then you take a 1/2 inch deep socket, drive in those toggle bolts. So now we've got our plate down and we're ready to put in our peel and stick flashing. So you want to make sure that everything's clean around on this felt paper to make sure none of those wood chips are in the way, so we can get a nice tight bond with the peel and stick flashing. So we're ready to go here. And these peel and stick, you have a split here that you want to put right over the thread. Be sure to keep these in the shade so they don't get too hot and they're easier to work with. So here we can start to attach peel and stick. So like I said, with that split, you want to start it right on that thread and then push out from there. We're ready to put in our felt paper over this peel and stick under the batten and under the next row of felt paper. A lot of times you'll have the felt paper, sometimes the felt paper will fall right here and you just can put this same peel and stick right under that felt paper. But in this case, we're going to show you the worst case scenario, and here you'll have to pull the batten screw out, one batten screw out, and get under that felt paper. So here we're just going to pull out a tile or two. So for demonstration purposes, I pulled out this tile so that you could see where this felt paper is, but for this pulling out the batten, you could just push up tiles and remove screws. Sometimes you might need to pull out a tile or two to get under there. In this case, it wasn't too difficult to get under there, into that felt paper, but I just wanted to show how to work this in. So you take your felt paper and you slip it underneath that batten that you loosened up, and you fish this underneath the batten and underneath your felt paper. You want to be about 2 inches underneath this felt paper and just enough over this peel and stick, and we went 14 inches on the width for this felt paper so that you can get across this whole peel and stick. So we got our felt paper in, and you could just put a staple in to keep that felt paper down, like so. And then you want to put your screw back in to your batten. So now we're ready to put in our quick mount flat tile flashing, and it's a flashing that acts like a mock tile, and it basically has the cap and pan on each side, and it hooks in just like a tile. So we have our bars propping up the tiles, and we just slip it in, hook it onto the battens, line it up with our thread there, and let your tiles down. And then you're ready to put your post in. And you just find the thread and then put on your post. And then you want to take channel clamps and then just tighten it. Once you have your post down, you want to put down your sealant around the post. And you're watertight there. And you could take your donut over it. This is EPDM rubber, and now you're ready for any kind of rail that you want to put on, and all the hardware is included, and there's an extra washer and bolt to attach your rail or your L-foot, or your rack of choice.